Be still and know that I'm with you. Be still.
The Waco Siege of 1993 was a massacre that took place in a compound that belonged to religious Branch Davidians that broke away from an Adventist church. The group was led by David Koresh. Later on, members of the group were accused of abusing children, committing rape, and violating the use of weapons. This caused the ATF to invade the compound, which resulted in the death of 4 people of the ATF. 51 days after this incident, the FBI decided to take charge. The FBI released tear gas into the compound, not knowing about a fire that occurred in Mount Carmel Center, just further away. The fire quickly spread to the compound with the help of the tear gas, leaving 76 people dead. On the morning of April 19, 1995, a truck explosion occurred outside the Alfred Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, leaving 168 people dead and 700 injured. The attack was led by ex-Army soldier Timothy McVeigh. McVeigh left his truck full of explosives near the building, then left the scene in his getaway car, leaving the area and igniting the bomb to go off at exactly 9:02 a.m. The bomb was so deadly that more than 300 buildings were destroyed. It did not take more than 2 days to locate McVeigh. It turned out McVeigh was already behind bars 90 minutes after the explosion for speeding down a runway with his getaway car. From then on, it was concluded he was the culprit. McVeigh was upset to hear how the Waco massacre was dealt with, so in response to the siege, McVeigh targeted the Oklahoma Federal Building because it was home to multiple federal agencies.
At Oklahoma City's Memorial and Museum, visitors go through the bombing beginning in the early morning of April 19, 1995, and ending with a message of hope.
On September 11, 2001, at 8:45 a.m., the World Trade Center's North Tower was hit by a hijacked airplane from Boston American Flight 11. About 20 minutes later, the South Tower was also hit by a second hijacked plane, American Flight 175. Around 9:40 a.m., another plane from Washington crashed into the Pentagon. Because of the fire ignited by the fallen towers, the surrounding buildings also collapsed. They were World Trade 4, 5, and 6. The final building was World Trade 7 at 5:20 p.m. The United States was in chaos. Many residents left the area. The scene looked like a war zone. The death toll was roughly about 7,200 deaths, not including anyone who gave their service for those in need and not counting the many more people who died from the polluted air a few months later. Around 10 a.m., a plane was being hijacked by 4 Al-Qaeda followers. Their motive was to either crash the airplane into the White House or any other federal building in Washington. The passengers of the United Flight 93 realized that their plane was a hijacked plane. The unusual thing about this hijacked plane was that the passengers fought the terrorists. They rebelled against them and tried to take control.
The 9/11 Memorial contains 2 pools in the area where the North and South Towers stood, and inscribed are the names of the victims. There is also a museum that serves as the country's principal institution for examining the implications of the events on 9/11.
National security is a term used to enclose national defense and foreign relations of a country. National security had a significant effect on airports after major terrorist attacks such as 9/11. New corporations such as the Transportation Security Administration was created. The TSA was the largest single federal startup since World War II. The TSA has been working to keep passengers safe. After the 9/11 incident, precautions had to be taken. 3 months after the attack, in December, passengers tried to detonate explosives hidden in shoes. In 2006, people started to carry liquids in containers inside plastic bags because liquid explosives were uncovered. In 2009, it was revealed people carried plastic explosives under their clothes. Some people think the use of technology and research for all the X-ray scanners and metal detectors are getting out of hand. But TSA Administrator John Pistol states, Americans should look at these incidents in a broader context and make sure that each and every person doesn't pose a threat to aviation security.
As a result of 9/11, the U.S. government started to create laws that were aimed at protecting the people of the United States. The USA Patriot Act was passed in 2001, and its goals were to strengthen domestic security and broaden the powers of law enforcement agencies with regards to identifying and stopping terrorism. The FISA Amendment of 2008 was also passed in response to 9/11. It ensures that the intelligence community has the flexibility and agility it needs to identify and respond to terrorists and other foreign threats to our security. These laws were put in place to deal directly with any terrorist threats.
On October 5, 2001, almost a month after the September 11th terrorist attacks on New York City, the Pentagon, and western Pennsylvania, terror of another type struck. Robert Stevens, a 63-year-old photo editor from Boca Raton, Florida, died from inhalation anthrax.
Today, there's been another reported case of anthrax.
Within a few weeks, 17 more people would be diagnosed with anthrax. 4 more would die. Other media headquarters in New York, Senate office buildings on Capitol Hill, and postal facilities along the East Coast would all become contaminated with anthrax spores, sending an already anxious nation into a panic over possible nationwide bioterrorism attacks.
Right after the letters were sent, Iran had been blamed for what was called the worst bioterrorism in the United States history. They had believed it to be Iran because they were the only country to use anthrax in their biochemical weapons. This was later proven untrue when they started investigating Dr. Bruce Ivins. In 2008, the investigation concluded the FBI believed that Ivins was working on an anthrax vaccine program that he had helped create but was in danger of failing in 2001. The FBI believed he had contaminated people in order to get his experiment going again. The case never made it to court because the suspect committed suicide in 2008 as government lawyers were preparing to charge him. The FBI stated that Dr. Bruce Ivins had worked completely alone in the anthrax attacks.
About a decade after, a survey was conducted by USA Today /Gallup in which showed that about 28% of Americans have said that they have changed their way of living because of this tragedy. Many Eastern countries have also agreed and said that Americans have changed the way they live. The survey also showed that Americans are less likely to travel overseas, attend high-populated events, fly on airplanes, and be on skyscrapers. Americans have stopped doing specific activities due to the 9/11 attack. They have associated skyscrapers with the towers, flights with hijacking planes, and populated events with the fear of a shooting or bomb blowing up.
Terrorism attacks in the United States have always created fear in both the people and the government. The United States government began to create laws that were criticized as giving too much power to the government and taking away from the civil liberties of the United States citizens. Since bin Laden's death, the tension and fear has gone down greatly. People feel less afraid to ride on airplanes and go into skyscrapers.